most welcome to Historiesbanan History Reconnaissance. This is US engineers in the Vietnam War, ports, bridges and combat. The history of military engineers who supported the US Army in Vietnam spans nearly 2 decades, starting with a handful of advisors in the mid-1950s. Army engineers landed in force with US ground units in 1965, and before long numbered more than 10% of the US Army troops committed to the fight. Please, like, share and subscribe. It's Latvia. It was a harsh and undeveloped region, and under constant threat from an elusive and determined foe. Water barriers, elephant grass, and a maze of bamboo, vines and scrub brush faced the soldier on foot. The engineers repaired roads and bridges to clear the advance. They built ports and depots for a supply line that reached halfway around the globe, carved airfields and airstrips out of the jungle and mountains, and constructed bases for an army that expanded with each passing year. The engineers were often found in the thick of the fighting and fought as infantrymen, following a long tradition of fighting while building. When the US involvement in the Vietnam War began to wind down, the US engineers stepped up their training of the South Vietnamese Army in construction and management, leaving in place a robust infrastructure to support the South Vietnamese in their struggle against the North Vietnamese Army. The enemy used the natural barriers of jungle and mountains as a formidable weapon. The job of the combat engineer was to overcome these obstacles and clear the way for the fighting forces, with the tools of his trade in one hand and his weapons in the other. Most roads in Vietnam were narrow dirt trails. The few hard surface highways were heavily trafficked. The creation of new roads through the interior was vital to supply and support of scattered combat forces. In 1966, the sandy Cam Ranh Bay Peninsula on the Vietnamese coast and the areas around it was a vast military complex. The build-up had started in 1963 with plans for port facilities, airfields and depots for all classes of supplies, hospitals and other facilities. By the end of 1966, engineers and contractors had transformed Cam Ranh Bay into a major logistical base supporting over 36,000 troops. By late 1966, the base had 5 deep draft piers, 4 landing craft ramps. There was also a jetty with a capacity to pump ashore 30,000 barrels of fuel products daily.
February 13th, 1966. We are now in Cam Ranh Bay and we're in the middle of the port. In the background we see some of the U.S. Army tugs escorting one of the larger freighters out to sea. And with me I have the skipper of the LT-1940. Tell us a little bit about your mission.
Well, our mission here is to dock and undock deep draft vessels to move floating equipment around the harbor. Such as cranes, barges, anything that floats.
Civilian contractors played a major role in the development of the Cam Ranh Bay area. DeLong Corporation installed portable deep draft piers. The first, with all equipment and spare part, was towed from the US East Coast, a trip that took about 2 months.
February 15th, 1966. This is Cam Ranh Bay. And we're now aboard the floating machine shop 789. With me is Warrant Officer Mr. Delaney. Would you tell us a bit about your mission here in Cam Ranh Bay and the type of vessel we're on?
This type of vessel is floating machine shop. The mission of the machine shop is to provide as close as possible a dust-free, elaborate machine shop for rebuilding capabilities.
Well, you mentioned dust-free. I notice there's quite a bit of sand on the beach. Is that a problem here in maintenance of equipment?
Most definitely. It's a big problem due to the fact that when tearing down a piece of equipment such as engines or transmissions, it's very difficult to keep the sand out.
The crane aboard the floating machine shop lowers the heavy units to be repaired to shops below deck.
In 1966, the U.S. Army reactivated 11 T-2 tankers and converted them into floating electrical power generation plants and deployed them to Vietnam. The ship's turbines were used to generate electricity for onshore use, drawing on fuel from the ship's 150,000 barrel holds. By May 1967, 5 T-2 power tankers and 1 land-based power plant produced electricity at Cam Ranh.
This larger tugboat in the harbor traveled under its own power from the United States via Panama, Long Beach, California, Kwajalein, and Okinawa. The tugs maneuver the heavily laden ships about the harbor and into and out of pier facilities with dispatch.
Further inland, another type of craft was pushing on. The rome plows, or hogjaws, plow tractors equipped with a very sharp stinger blade, weighing more than 2 tons, and able to cut down large trees. Manufactured by the Rome Plow Company, Georgia. They had a reinforced steel cage on top of each vehicle, with a headache bar over the operator's head to protect him from falling debris. By the summer of 1967, there were 3 teams of 30 plows each working in Vietnam, later reorganized as companies. By January 1969, increased to 6 jungle and anti-ambush clearing companies. One of these units, with 36,000-pound monster plows, was the 60th Land Clearing Company, the Jungle Eaters. Another road is completed through tangled jungle and landslides. The first convoy of fuel tankers moves over the mountains to the Quanton province. The road is open for a large-scale flow of food, fuel and ammunition to the fighting units. But the job didn't stop there. Maintaining and repairing the roads of South Vietnam was a constant struggle for the combat engineers. Small country roads, never intended for heavy traffic, was endlessly in need of repair. Bridges, the pounding of traffic, the forces of weather, and the Viet Cong, they all took their toll. Damaged and weakened bridges were not repaired. They were replaced, using prefabricated components to speed up the process. Vital time is saved when sections of the bridge are flown in by helicopter and lowered into position. Soon, the last piece is in place, and the new bridge is done. Yet another road is open for men and material. Tactical bridges like this lightweight footbridge is just one of many types the combat engineers could set up quickly to provide passage over rivers and streams. For more permanent structures, a Bailey bridge can be built using steel sections that are locked together. This is the 1st Combat Engineer Battalion in 1969, building a bridge near Da Nang. A relaxed atmosphere at the moment, but this could change quickly. Ambushes, mines and booby traps was a constant threat. The previous year, when supporting the 1st Marine Division during the Tet Offensive, the 1st Combat Engineers suffered 7 killed and 15 wounded in just 1 month. They built a pontoon bridge over the Pokam Canal together with Army engineers and Seabees. They worked to reconstruct blown bridges, culverts and highways. All along the main lines of communications, especially along Highway 1, the main north-south artery.
This is the American Forces Vietnam Network. This is AFVN, serving the American fighting man 24 hours a day from the Delta to the DMZ, with transmitters in Quang Tri, Da Nang, Quy Nhon, Pleiku, and Nha Trang, with the key network station in Saigon, Vietnam.
Here, carved in cement, are some thoughts left behind by the engineers. The best way to preserve your lives is not go fighting, and the war will be ended when the GIs refuse. Can you decipher all of it? Then drop a line in the comments. During the Vietnam War, over 200,000 US soldiers served in engineered units, on engineer staffs assigned to major commands, and other staff and command positions and as engineer advisors. When the army reached its peak strength in Vietnam in 1969, there were over 40,000 troops serving with army engineered units. During the whole Vietnam War, over 1,500 soldiers, engineers and non-engineers, including 143 officers, were killed or died of injuries while serving in engineered units and in other engineer assignments. Many more wounded and affected. Their efforts in South Vietnam from 1965 to 1968 allowed the United States to deploy and operate a modern 500,000 man force in a remote, undeveloped region. Although most of the construction was temporary, airfields, port and depot complexes, headquarter buildings, communication facilities, and an improved highway system was also a part of their legacy.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.